Singapore, the first ever night race in F1, and it's earned a place in the heart of Formula 1 because of it. However, this love of the Singapore streets isn't without some controversy at its very first race back in 2008, and the Renault Crashgate incident. Not to mention the fact it's a street circuit, so crashes are always likely to happen. However, the main news going into this race is how Alexander Rossi will replace Roberto Merhi for the remaining races this season other than Russia and Abu Dhabi.
I'm still a little bit shocked, I think. It's something that has been a long time coming, you're right, and there's been a lot of kind of false starts in the past. And I'm just very grateful to be able to do a full race weekend and just get out on track and start doing my job and you know, showing the people and the world and the sport what I'm capable of and that I deserve to be here.
So while it's great to see an American in the sport again, his weekend didn't go too well after a crash in free practice 1. Speaking of manner, we all know how well Will Stevens did in Monaco, and with this being another street circuit, can he replicate that performance here? Well, let's find out for the 2015 Singapore Grand Prix. Qualifying got underway here under the lights and the night sky of the Marina Bay here in Singapore. The session started with Will Stevens on his flying lap, surprisingly being held up by Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull, which did cause some tension between the two drivers. Things got worse for Will Stevens, as at the end of his second flying lap, he was held up by a train of cars led by Stevens' newfound teammate for 5 of the next 7 races, Alexander Rossi. Come the end of the session and Stevens was holding out for a place in Q2, however with lots of drivers below him suddenly improving right at the end of the session, Stevens was demoted to 19th. This meant that he was ahead of only his teammate Alexander Rossi, who was 1.2 seconds a lap slower than Stevens. Just ahead of Stevens were both McLaren Hondas of Button and Alonso, with Stevens impressively less than 1/10 of a second behind Button. The last car to be eliminated was Nico Hülkenberg in the Force India, which is extremely disappointing considering how good the car has been previously this season. Q2 saw the elimination of both Toro Rossos in 15th and 14th, with Sainz the quickest of the two. Then it was the two Saubers, of which Marcus Ericsson was ahead, and finally it was Romain Grosjean who was the final man to be eliminated in Q2. This left Q3 to end with the other Lotus of Maldonado in 10th and Sergio Perez in 9th. Next is Kvyat in 8th and Felipe Massa in 7th. Then it is the other Williams of Valtteri Bottas in 6th and the other Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo in 5th. The second row was filled by Ferrari with Raikkonen in front, and then the front row for tomorrow's race will be headed by the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. So here we are under the night skies on Marina Bay for the Singapore Grand Prix. As you can see, starting on the option tyres and a 3-stop strategy for today's race. And now the first thing I want to clear up is that Roberto Merhi, obviously he's listed in the game as Roberto Merhi, but as we saw in the real life Singapore Grand Prix, he has now been replaced by Alexander Rossi, so I will be referring to him as Alexander Rossi, even though the game still calls him Roberto Merhi, so I just want to clear that up right away. But anyway, the lights are going out in Singapore, and we're going to get off now, and another smoky start from us. Every single start this entire season has been smoky, but I think Rossi's actually got the jump on us at the start. He has in fact, but we're going to try and go around the outside of both McLarens. There's a Toro Rosso, of Force India's gone a bit off, but we're still side by side with that Toro Rosso, and the Toro Rosso spun out. That is a dramatic start for the Toro Rosso of Max Verstappen, and now we're up behind the other Toro Rosso of Carlos Sainz and Felipe Nasr. Now we're going to try and see if we can get past them on this straight, putting up to front brake bias, because of course this track it puts a lot of pressure on the rear tyres, so we need to try and preserve them as much as possible. But we're still up behind Sainz and Nasr, who are in their own little battle. We're going to try and see if we can get involved in this, because if we're going to be able to get past them, we need to do it as soon as possible. But we're just not quite close enough to be able to get past Sainz and Nasser. And no, we had a poor exit out of that corner, and Sainz has already pulled away. So let's have a look at what happened for Max Verstappen. So he's got the Force India of Nico Hülkenberg, who's on the prime tyres, actually, interestingly. As you can see, there's us, we go around the outside of him. But what just happens here? Ah, yeah, a racing incident between him and Felipe Nasser. And he's fallen to the back of the grid, in fact, but no damage on his car, so he should be able to get back underway. And so we're still up behind Carlos Sainz, coming to the end of the first lap. So he hasn't been able to pull away from us, so it does show that we have got some pace in this manner, surprisingly. Are we going to try and make the move? Sainz, we broke very late. We've actually made a bit of contact with him. We've actually made some contact with Carlos Sainz. We've just about been able to get past. Let's have a look at a replay of that. How does this actually go down? So we're right behind him, obviously, in the slipstream. No DRS at this point in the Grand Prix. And we just try and outbrake him, but yeah, we kind of slightly misjudged that. And we do make a bit of contact with him. And we do take the place. We're up into 14th, which is still very impressive for the man in Russia. Obviously, we saw that they were not very strong in the real-life Singapore Grand Prix, so the fact we're up even in 14th is fantastic. But I think Sainz, using the Toro Rosso and its aerodynamics and the Renault engine, is actually going to easily be able to get past us. But I think there's a McLaren looking to make the move as well. Yes, there is. That's actually Fernando Alonso's looking to make the move. We've just been able to shut the door on him, so we're back down into 15th place. And as you can see, lap 2 going through what was the Singapore Sling. Still in 15th place. Sainz has actually pulled out quite a bit of a gap already. Oh, we've gone round! Okay, what on earth has happened there? There's absolute chaos. Nico Hülkenberg is just driving into the wall. Okay, what on earth has happened there? We're going to try and get a replay on that. So as you can see, so there's Fernando Alonso behind us. Now, what happens here? I think he must just hit us. Yeah, it seems to just have a little bit of a fishtail prior to, I think he lost control of his car under the brakes. Now we'll see from an onboard perspective. I think he just loses control under braking and he just wobbles into us. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. He put on the brake pedal and he got into a bit of a wobble, and unfortunately he wasn't able to stop going into us. So I think definitely wasn't malicious from him. It wasn't intended. It was just sheer accident. So let's see from Nico Hülkenberg's perspective. Obviously you can see the battling going on between Stevens and Alonso. Now, what happens here? Because obviously we see him just go smoking in the wall. So we could just drive around us. He gets a tag actually from behind. And as you can see, just driving straight on into the wall, not using reverse gear. Although I don't know if cars actually have reverse gear in real life. I think it's just the game being unrealistic. But let's see what happens here. So I think Jenson Button clips the back of Hülkenberg, which sends Hülkenberg into the wall. And he later actually gets disqualified for parking in a dangerous position, Hülkenberg does. Yeah, and Button just tags him. Hülkenberg is now disqualified for parking in a dangerous location, and obviously, well, he can't really get out of there, and soon those tyres are going to cease to exist if he's going to burn them up like that. But Jenson Button actually lost a lot of time. He's now right with Rossi, of course. And yeah, Jenson Button's lost a lot of time, but no damage to any car there. So we pull away from that, all of us, and no damage to anyone's car, apart from the fact, obviously, Hülkenberg's going to be disqualified. But that means, you know, we lost all hope of catching up to Sainz, thanks to Alonso there. Next, see, 1 to lap 5, and we're just so far behind Sainz and every other car in front of us. Now, as you can see, I'm looking through the radio commands. I'm trying to see the command for tell Rossi to crash, because I think that's the only thing that's going to save us, but I'm too busy looking at the radio commands trying to tell Rossi to crash, because as we saw 2008, that worked well for Fernando Alonso. But unfortunately that isn't the radio command in this game, because I would really like Rossi to crash, and then that would help us actually massively. But as you can see, we pause going on to the race director, and as you can see, we got 2 cars on the prime tyres. That's actually Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel are both on the prime tyres, so they're going to be really competitive for the race win come the end of the race, because really all we can really focus on now is the lead, you know, is the battle for the lead of the race. Because back here, there's not really a lot going on. Verstappen passes us eventually, obviously, from his first lap incident. He's been able to catch and get past us. Actually, very similar to the real-life Singapore Grand Prix. Obviously, he wasn't able to do the first lap, but he still was a lap behind, and yet still overtook the the Manners. So really Verstappen just showing he is overpowered really, and is just actually a really quick driver. But we're coming into the pits already, because look at the tyre degradation, it is shocking. We've still got Fernando Alonso behind us. He's actually able to make the move on us, not scribbling under braking and just sliding into us. He was actually able to make that move successfully. And you know, we try and battle the move, battle the place, but it's not really worth it, because in the long run we're no way going to be able to beat the Manners, who the McLarens rather, who've got so much more pace than us. As you can see, Button goes past because we're pitting quite early actually. Well, in comparison to the McLarens, obviously loads of other cars have come into the pits this exact lap, but compared to McLarens, we're pitting in quite early. As you can see, making the way to our pit box. And if you look on the map actually, Rossi's quite a way behind us. So I think all we can focus about for the rest of the race is the inter-team battle, and we're quite a way ahead of Rossi, obviously his debut race. So I think that that's a positive we can take, is how we are quite a way ahead of our teammates, and so that is one positive to take from the race, even though we are, you know, 18th and, you know, last of, or second to last of the remaining runners this race. And now skipping on to later on in the race, lap 9, and as you can see, if you look on the map, there's some cars exiting the pits. I believe those are the McLarens, and we've got ahead of Jenson Button, not quite Fernando Alonso, but the fact is we've been able to catch up to Alonso through that pit stop. So actually that shows that pitting in early did actually help us, you know, to catch up to Alonso. But of course Alonso's already pulled out. You know, such a massive gap in such a short space of time. Jenson Button's got past us, and honestly, for the sake of the British drivers, we don't want to hold them up too much. But at the end of the day, I don't think the McLarens are going to make too much of this race either, because well, they've been held up by us so much. I don't think they're going to make much. And as you can see, already onto the second stop, it's been quite a boring race for us. But again, if you look at the map, Rossi's even further away from us than when we came into the pits last time around. So we are definitely consistently quicker than Rossi, which is one massive positive we can take. Obviously in the real life Grand Prix it's the other way round, but this time we're substantially ahead of Rossi actually, by about almost a pit stop ahead of him. It's a massive gap we've got on him. But now lap 17, we're actually coming up to get lapped, which is quite worrying. The car behind us I believe is Lewis Hamilton, and obviously he's the Brit we want. He's the guy who we want to win the Drivers' Championship for the sake of Britain obviously, so we're going to let him through easily. And we kind of have to anyway. So we let Lewis Hamilton through, and we're just going to follow him around for the rest of the lap. And actually, speaking of which, a lap and a half later, we're still right up behind him. So what's that all about? Are we now as quick as a Mercedes? No, he's actually pulling into the pits. So his tyres must have been gone, because he got past us. But for the remaining lap and a half, we were the same pace as him, which was quite worrying. Because it's not like he's had a drop in electrical boost like in the race, he just had worn tyres. But now coming in for our third pit stop, and really, what a boring race this has been. Apart from the escapades in the first few laps, it's been quite a boring race. We're on the prime tyres now, we're going to take them to the end of the race, and again, look at the map, look how far away Rossi is. We're still quicker than him, so unless Rossi's so much quicker than us on the prime tyres, I don't think he's going to even be able to come close to us this race. I think Rossi has firmly lost the team battle to Will Stevens. Now if you look here, Sebastian Vettel is in second place in the race, and actually he is the massive threat to take the win from Lewis Hamilton at the minute. So we got to watch out for that. Rosberg's in third, Ricciardo fourth, and really we've got to watch out for Vettel and see if he takes the lead from Lewis Hamilton. But Vettel's actually coming to the pits. Okay, so now we don't have to worry about Vettel taking the lead from Hamilton because he's coming to the pits, but for another set of option tyres. So this could be interesting. We could see Vettel actually, you know, make some moves in the end of the race. And as you can see, Vettel's down 6th. He's just behind the Williams. Obviously, we don't want him to beat the Williams for the sake of the Constructors' Championship. And Rosberg is now in 2nd. Okay, so that when the cars are lapping us, we've got to watch out for that. Now, as you can see, Nico Rosberg, he's there all by himself, nowhere near Hamilton, actually. So what happens here? Pulling off the side of the track. He's had some car failure because he's going to retire from this race. Just coasted to a halt there. And now as you can see, Kimi Raikkonen is now the new second place man. We let him through because Hamilton is so far ahead at this point. There's no point really holding up Raikkonen because he's so far behind Hamilton. He's no way going to catch up. So we'll just let him through. Also the fact I really like Kimi Raikkonen. I don't really want to hold him up. So we'll just let him through easily. And as you can see, Daniel Ricciardo's the next car we got to let through in 3rd place. But as you can see, actually, we saw that just for a brief moment. There's actually a Williams behind. That's Valtteri Bottas. Now, if I knew Bottas was that close to Ricciardo, I would have held up Ricciardo some more, you know, just to help out Williams and the constructors, but we let Bottas through. We pretty much stop on the track to let Bottas through there, because obviously we want him to, you know, get past Ricciardo and actually make up some points in the Constructors' Championship. Now, as you can see, Vettel's next car behind us now. He's got the car performance advantage over us, he's got the engine performance advantage, he's got the tyre performance advantage. There's no way we'll be able to keep him behind. As you can see, he easily gets past us. But we could try and brake late, and whoa! I think we've just sent Vettel into the wall. He's actually lost his front wing. Okay, now do you want to know the reason I did that? The reason I did that is I know I don't want Ferrari to do well in the Constructors, and I knew Felipe Massa was actually just behind. So I thought, if I can be a tiny bit cheeky, possibly cheating, I guess, and then, you know, Felipe Massa will be able to catch her. As you can see, Massa's out caught up. This is brilliant for the Constructors. Williams to win the Constructors, but Massa's going to the back of Vettel. And that's probably karma, because we hit Vettel, and now Massa's just hit Vettel. I think that's karma for us and for our actions. But actually, if you go into the pits, so, you know, the Williams guys, they've repaired Massa's wing. He's actually jumped Vettel in the pit, so this is fantastic. So our little strategy, cheekily knocking Vettel into the wall, has actually helped us. But no, it hasn't, because Daniel Kvyat in the Red Bull has jumped both Vettel and Massa there. So GG, that really worked out. But so Massa in the Williams, he's actually going to gain points on the Ferrari, but he's not going to gain any points relative to what he would have done because Kvyat has got past. But anyway, as you can see, a lap early, Lewis Hamilton's won the race comfortably, but we're going to come through in 17th, way ahead of Rossi. And that is a massive success for us in that sense alone. We were about 30 seconds ahead of Rossi, so that's fantastic, but a dismal race. Nowhere near as good as Monaco, where loads of crashes happened. None happened this race. We weren't able to capitalise on crashes because there was none, nor were there changeable conditions, you know, unfortunately. But Lewis Hamilton won way ahead of Raikkonen second. Bottas was able to get past Ricciardo, so Williams to gain some points in the Constructors' Championship there. Massa still ahead of Vettel come the end of the race, so that's fantastic. So Massa's, you know, gained some points on Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Button in 12th, so he did fantastically since he got past us. Fernando Alonso down 16th, so I don't know what happened because he was the car just ahead of us, so really his race was ruined. And then the two Germans of Rosberg and Hulkenberg were the two not to finish this race. And on to the driver standings, and Lewis Hamilton is way ahead at the minute, and I don't see anyone being able to challenge him anytime soon. With Bottas, the surprise second place in the drivers' table, he's really leapt up, which is good for Williams, again in the Constructors' POV. And Massa's right up behind Rosberg, obviously due to Rosberg's DNF this race. On to the second half of the drivers' standings, and one thing I didn't note is Carlos Sainz in the Toro Rosso actually finished 8th. So he gained a lot, because obviously we were battling with him at the start of the race, but he gained massively since then. So he gained 4 points this race, and that meant he's jumped Jenson Button. So fantastic result for Carlos Sainz, and he's level on points with Felipe Nasr. And as you can see, we've added Alexander Rossi to the driver's standings, but obviously is behind Roberto Merhi on a race position terms. On to constructor standings, and there's no changes here. The only interesting thing is that Mercedes, Ferrari, Williams and Red Bull all scored pretty much the same amount of points this race. I think Mercedes scored 25, Ferrari 24, Williams 23 and Red Bull 22 points this race. So they all scored pretty much the same amount, and obviously we still need Williams to get some more points so they can mount for the Constructors' Championship, which is going to be my main focus in the upcoming rounds. And Marcus Ericsson with his points this race means that Sauber are just behind Manor, and the only thing that's keeping Manor in front is obviously the astonishingly high 4th place finish from Monaco. Finally onto the Nations table, and Finland is still dominating it. Germany, despite the fact they didn't score many points this race, is still in 2nd. And then there's a massive gap between Brazil in 6th and Venezuela in 7th. The only other notable thing is Spain have jumped Sweden, and what a time for Carlos Sainz to score 4 points. In a race where Roberto Merhi wasn't competing, that meant that Spain's points for this race were divided by 2, not by 3. So what a time for Spain to get a massive haul of points. And obviously finally, USA have been added to the Nations table, obviously thanks to Rossi, who's now able to represent them for 5 of the 7 remaining races this season. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to leave a like, a comment, and next time we'll be at the Japanese Grand Prix where I'm going to be as Jenson Button, trying to do Honda proud. So I'll see you guys for that race. So I'll see you then.